As we turn our attention from Nevada to South Carolina, one poll shows another dead heat, with Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders virtually tied in a recent Chains Research poll. Both men lead at 23%, and Tom Steyer is in third at 20%.
That poll was done in partnership with the group The Welcome Party, and their co-founder Liam Kerr joins us now via Skype to dig into the polling results. Great to have you, Liam. Welcome.
Great to be with you.
All right, so we showed the top line numbers there. I want to put the trend lines up so people can see how this has changed over time. And essentially what you see is Joe Biden sort of consistently falling and Bernie Sanders in particular consistently rising along with Tom Steyer. Talk to us a little bit about what you found, also the time frame when this polling was done so that people can know, what changes it may or may not reflect.
Yeah, so the poll was conducted immediately after the New Hampshire primary, so February 12th to 14th. So does not take into account what happened in Nevada. But as you said, these are trends that have been going on for months. We're using the same pollster, Change Research, who has partnered with the Post and Courier down here in South Carolina to do monthly tracking polls of the campaign. And as you said, a little bump for Sanders and a really big bump for Steyer over the last several months.
So that's interesting. One of the other things that we have from you is South Carolina voter contact from campaigns bipartisanship. Let's throw that up on the screen as well. You're seeing a tremendous number of voter contact by Tom Steyer there, obviously due to the immense resources that he's poured into this campaign. But one thing I'm interested in with you is that, given Steyer's lack of long-term viability here, Liam, what does the second choice numbers show for a guy like Tom Steyer? What's the coalition that he's drawing from, so to speak?
Yeah, so Biden leads among Steyer voters when they're asked what their second choice is. So he gets 40% of those voters. In our poll, that's 8% of the total electorate. Wow. Similarly, a recent poll done by UMass Lowell asked about the likelihood of voters changing their mind. Steyer voters were twice as likely to change their mind as Biden or Sanders voters. So if we see a late surge here for Joe Biden, that's probably going to get taken out of a chunk of Tom Steyer voters whose support may be a little weaker.
Yeah, well, and we saw in Nevada, Steyer poured a ton of money into Nevada, didn't really pan out for him, so it seemed like whatever support he had built there was very soft, also an ominous sign potentially for the other billionaire in the race, Michael Bloomberg. Just give us a little more details about that Steyer second choice vote. What is the breakdown? You said, 48% would go to Joe Biden? Just give us the full set of numbers.
Yeah, 40% to Biden, 30% to Sanders, and then scattered thereafter.
Interesting. What about some of the other ones? So we have Buttigieg and Warren as well. Do we know the second choice data whenever it comes to them, some of these dwindling candidates?
Yeah, so they were on too small of an n size to really pull out a lot of insights from that. So we can't say with as much confidence. But when you do look at national polling, Sanders is taking both from Warren and from Joe Biden. But Buttigieg, Bloomberg, and Klobuchar, not as much. So, the weaker or, if one of those candidates were to drop out, that momentum would accrue to one of the other candidates or on that list or to Joe Biden.
And do you have any data for us on race or other demographic breakdown?
It's very similar to what we've been seeing where, Steyer and Biden are, leading among African-American voters in particular. And within that, those Steyer numbers, particularly soft support there. So, again, if there was a surge, it will come from African-Americans who make up about 60% of the electorate in the South Carolina primary.
So one thing, Liam, is a Morning Consult now shows that Bernie Sanders actually overtaken Joe Biden nationally amongst black voters. Do you think does that largely mimic what happens in South Carolina, or is it a little bit different?
So I think what we're going to see is, winning begets winning. And part of this is the frame that's been put on the race. And it's been a plurality frame right now. And I think when you see that plurality frame and the narrative that's being built around 30, 35%, you still get the headlines, whether you're at 30% or 60% coming out of a primary. And so I think a big part of the conversation over the next week will be around, is a plurality enough? That was the last question in the last debate. I think we could expect it to be a bigger part of the next debate. And I think for black voters and all voters, seeing what comes out of South Carolina, a Biden victory could really, change that narrative. And also a conversation during the debate about whether a plurality is enough I think could shift the frame a little bit on how people are perceiving a front runner. People want to be with a winner.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's what we saw back in 2016 as well. And finally, Liam, just talk to me a little bit about Change Research. How has their track record been in other primaries, and what is their polling methodology?
Yeah, so they are in the newer breed of online pollster that The Economist has actually shown in this primary is doing better than some of the more traditional methods. So text and online polling are doing better. Change is kind of on the cutting edge of online polling work. In Iowa, they were one of the top pollsters. And in the aggregated primary, the first 3 states, the analysis that The Economist has done, they're in the top third of pollsters there as well. So I think as this primary continues going on, this is the first time the bright lights have really been on online polling. And I think with everyone talking about polling in general, people are going to see that they're able to break away a little bit and faster turnaround, and will be injected more into the mainstream conversation.
Yeah,
that's been my observation of this race
makes
as
sense.
well.
I mean, who has a landline at this point, honestly?
2019.
Yeah, Liam,
or 2020.
Thank you so much.
Coming up on Rising, Orrin Cass, he describes his new organization, how it fits into the growing New Right movement. That's as Rising continues.